Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for the last presentation of today. Thank you for joining me live on Facebook as well. Very nice to see you all again. My name is Jason Levine, Principal Worldwide Evangelist for Adobe, focusing in on audio and video. And for this last half hour, we're going to be talking about some of the latest innovations coming to our Creative Cloud video applications, Premiere Pro, After Effects, Character Animator, and Adobe Audition. So we're going to start first in Premiere Pro and talk about some of the new things coming to Premiere in the new immersive VR space. So you know that a little over a year ago we introduced our initial support for VR and 360 video. And there were three questions that kept coming up to me every time we'd show some of our VR and immersive workflows. And the first thing was, how do I do text projection? How do I take a text layer and actually project it properly in 360 space? And the answer to that was, you need to get Metal Skybox plugin. They do it. You can run it in After Effects or Premiere. It's fantastic. It works beautifully. That's what you need. Second question was, how do I change the orientation point, the starting point? You know, I may have filmed like this, but I actually want the viewer to start here. How do I change where that start point is, the orientation at the beginning of the video? Same thing. I said, you've got to use Metal Skybox. They're great. They've got a plugin that will do that. And the third thing was, what about effects and transitions? Same answer, Metal Skybox. So we kept hearing this, and it occurred to us that this was really an integral part of editing that 360 VR experience. So as some of you may have heard, in the last few months we acquired a series of the Metal Skybox plugins, which in this next release of Premiere Pro and After Effects will be directly integrated into the applications. And you'll be able to find those plugins under the effects menus in the new immersive category. So let's start with a little text projection. So here we have a scene in Venice, and currently we're looking at the equirectangular frame here in our program monitor. I'm going to go ahead and grab a motion graphics template that I created. Now again, this is just a standard motion graphics template. This was not designed for 360 or VR. And you could do this today. You could drag text in without doing anything additional to it. The problem is that once you put it in the VR viewer, right away you can see that it's bent, it's all pixelated, it doesn't look right. That's because this was never intended to be projected in a 360 environment like that. For that, again, you needed this plugin from Metal. Well, again, now we have this directly integrated in Premiere Pro and After Effects, and it's called VR Plane to Sphere. So what I'm simply going to do, let me just drag this out to make it a little bit longer, grab my VR Plane to Sphere, drag this over top of my clip, go to my effects controls. The first thing I'm going to do is scale this up, acting a bit like my Z depth here. And then, if I actually decided, okay, well, first of all, you can see now it's oriented properly. It's not bending unnecessarily. But actually, I want to take that text, and I want to kind of orient it along this side wall here. Well, you'll notice here in VR Plane to Sphere, you've got a couple of different options. Whoa. We've got Rotate Source and Rotate Projection. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the projection pan along the y-axis here and simply move that in the correct way over top of the window there. Again, we can use our projection roll here just to kind of orient that perfectly along the back wall there. I guess really actually 0 degrees is just right. And now, as we play this, you can see that our text is perfectly along that back wall. Very nice, very cool. And this is just flat. We haven't added any particular style or design to this, but you get the idea. Okay, so once again, next thing people asked was, how do I change that start position, that orientation, right when someone puts on the headset or watches on YouTube? Currently, this is the way we shot it, looking forward out to the boat. But I actually want them to be looking at the back of the boat. So to change that starting point, that orientation point, for this you're going to use the effect called VR Rotate Sphere. And it's as simple as taking this, dragging it over top of your content, and once again, we're going to choose our pan y-axis here, and we can simply switch the position to the back of the boat, where now we're revealing these creepy clowns doing their thing in the back of the gondola. And you know that this is not me adjusting the viewer because, again, we're at 0 degrees inside of our settings here. We have not changed any of the actual settings. This is the viewer. You can see as I move this around, now we're changing that orientation. So very quickly, non-destructively, that's how we did that using VR Rotate Sphere. Okay? All right, and the last thing I'm just going to show you here before we skip ahead, we've got another 25 minutes. People were consistently asking about transitions. And transitions, we're so used to using them in standard traditional editing, but in VR and 360, they're really used as a narrative device. You're not just using transitions to cut between a scene, you're actually using them to move people through the next scene, right? There's this concept of actual movement through it versus simply cutting to it. And that's where, once again, these fantastic transitions come into play, specifically designed for this format. So here, I'm just going to do a little ripple on here so we can add a nice transition. And let's start with something like our light rays. And maybe we'll do this one here as well. We can adjust the duration of the transition. Let's play through this here. We'll start in the equirectangular frame to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. And if we switch over to our VR viewer, now you can see how nicely those work, again, in 360. And we can be moving around while we're doing that as well. All right, here we go. Keep on moving. Let's transition with our iris wipe now. Okay. Really nice. And if you've watched a lot of 360 content on YouTube, you're probably going to start recognizing a lot of these transitions because most of them came from Metal. So we now have this suite of transitions available to you in both Premiere Pro and After Effects in this next version. It's also worth pointing out, now this is not new, but still somewhat undiscovered by many users, is that we now have full ambisonic audio support in Premiere Pro. In the next version, which is the one I'm using here that you'll be able to access, you will also have the ability to monitor your ambisonics in real time with your video. So today, to do that, you actually have to publish out to YouTube or Facebook to actually move the video and hear the ambisonic audio moving with you. In this next version, you'll be able to do it right inside the application. And taking that a step further, not only can you do it inside the application, but you can do it while you are inside a VR headset. So here at IBC, we have our VR headset connected just around the corner here if you want to take a look at that. This is just a quick video to show you. Here I've got my friend Michael cutting together this same content. He's going to put on his Oculus Rift here with his controller. And while you've got the headset on, you've got the hand controller in one hand, it frees up your other hand to do your keyboard shortcuts. You can actually see there that it pulls up from within the viewer. You have the option to pull up the sequence panel, and you can actually scrub through it, move clips around, review, using that little laser pointer there. It's such a cool experience, and this allows you, the editor, to experience what the user will experience. Did I just say experience about 15 times? It'll allow you to really see what they're going to see when they're in a headset, enjoying your 360 content. So this is coming in this next version of Premiere Pro as well. Okay, so now let's shift gears a little bit and move over to After Effects. And we're going to talk a little bit about something called data-driven animation, data-driven graphics. So here we have an animation showcasing across the US how different states refer to soda, or how they refer to, rather, soft drinks, whether it's pop, soda, or other, okay? And actually what's driving this animation is nothing more than a JSON file, a data file, converted from a CSV file. To do an animation like this by hand, and you can see what we've actually got set up here, we've got all the states down in our timeline. And each state has its own set of data. And it animates over time and kind of fills in the space and the colors in this graphic. And to do this manually would take quite a bit of time. But here, what we're actually doing is we're importing those JSON files as assets and referencing their values as expressions. And if you take a look up at the top here, you can actually see we've got some expression controls where we can modify pop color, soda color, even change the state ID. So let's go to something like state number 1, which happens to be Alabama. Again, we can play this back again. You can see that in Alabama, they actually refer to it, they prefer to say pop. Okay, so pop is the winner there. And all of that data is controlled through this JSON file. And if I scroll down, you can actually see the expression that's being used. Let's go ahead and highlight this. All right. So it's referencing this file here called other-soda-pop.json. Okay, and you can see here, here's how we get that state ID. So if I wanted to make a change to this, it's really simple. We don't have to reanimate. All we have to do is change the data in the file, hence data-driven graphic, data-driven animation. So I'm going to twirl down my footage folder here and go to my JSON samples where I have the other-soda-pop.json file. Let's go ahead and reveal this in the Finder. I'm going to open up this data file in our text editor. Up at the top here, we can see Alabama, and you can see that the winner right now is pop. Well, in fact, the actual winner was other. So go ahead and change this. And let's go ahead and save that as well. So we're saving a change to the data file, which is feeding the animation via this expression, which is ultimately animating all the changes in After Effects. Click back over here, and now you can see right away the state of Alabama turns yellow, the checkbox changes color, and it now tells you Alabama uses a word that rhymes with joke. Okay, so they don't refer to it as pop or soda, it's the other category. All right? All driven by using this JSON file as an asset and referencing its value as expressions. Okay? Now another little example of this. Here we've got some current weather conditions over a 12-hour outlook. This one is referencing Seattle specifically, West Coast, Pacific Coast time zone here. It says America, Los Angeles. And you can see it's got all this animation, and there's something in this expression here which is also driving the rain, okay? And the color of the background here, time of day, all right? 6:58 p.m. Well, we happen to have some other weather data from someplace like I think we've got New York, we've got Shanghai, so let's go ahead and change that. So I'm going to take Seattle. I'm going to go ahead and replace that file with the Shanghai file. Oh, and actually I have to replace it up here. It's this one. Sorry, my bad. Go ahead and replace this footage. Not Seattle. Let's go to Shanghai. And just like that, it changes. The data changes instantly. And if we wanted to dive even further into that, just as before, we could access that Shanghai file, make changes to it, and it will automatically update and change the data that's driven by the animation here inside of After Effects. So this is a really super cool feature, very, very handy for multiple different uses, coming in this next version of AE. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears and go over to Character Animator. All right, and I'm just going to, it looks like I already got my rest pose done. You can see here that it's tracking my face, and powered by Adobe Sensei, it is doing all of the voice sync and some very cool things there, which I'm going to show you now. So two quick things. So the first was making the character's face more expressive. And part of that was in how we displayed eyebrows. So when I raised my eyebrows on this character, I mean, it's fun, but there was just something lacking there. It wasn't quite expressive enough. Not just when I raise them, but when I try and furrow them, there was something missing. So we've added two new features to the face category here, raised eyebrow tilt and lowered eyebrow tilt. So, as I adjust raised eyebrow tilt, watch what happens. You see? So when I raise the eyebrows, they can actually be angled. Or, if I want my furrowed brow to appear, I can do something like this. Okay? More expressive, that much faster. Now, outside of that, we also heard from a lot of customers, as good as all of this has been getting, that there was something kind of weird with the eyes, that they always just seem to be kind of moving around. Now, again, this is a cartoon after all, so the eyes can kind of be a little googly, but they were maybe a little too much, and you can see that they're just kind of, they're just moving too much. So we kind of, if you look at a lot of animations, you'll notice that the eyes tend to sort of dart to a specific direction. There's almost a little bit of a pause when that happens. And that just makes it look a little bit more organic and at the same time, just more cartoon-like. So we've now added a feature called Snap Eye Gaze, where you can set a minimum snap duration. So now, when I turn this on and I look over to the right, or up, or down, or to the side, there's just that slight amount of delay that makes it just look a little bit better, okay? Versus the kind of googly nature of the way they were before. All right. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you here is related to, again, some of our powered by Adobe Sensei technology with regard to how we're recording and capturing audio, and specifically the mouth shapes tied to the audio. So let's do a really quick recording here, and you'll see something new immediately right inside the timeline. Hi, this is Jason, and thanks so much for watching me today in Character Animator live from IBC. So when I stop, the first thing that you will see is that we now have a waveform displayed inside Character Animator's timeline. This, of course, makes it extremely easy, or much easier, to align all those mouth shapes. And you can see down below, we have the Visime track, where now, very simply, you can, of course, right-click and change the mouth shape if necessary. And we've got 14 different mouth shapes at work here. But because you've got the waveform, this also allows you to much easier, or much more easily, kind of slip and slide the start position of those mouth shapes, move things around, swap them out. And again, this auto detection of the actual mouth shapes used is all powered by Adobe Sensei, machine learning technology that listens to what I'm saying and automatically translates that with some artificial intelligence into the very mouth shapes that you see before you. So really super cool stuff in Character Animator. And hopefully we'll get a couple seconds to talk about it a little bit more, but we need to move on to Audition. So let's go ahead and bounce over to Audition, where once again I have the opportunity to focus on a little bit of powered by Adobe Sensei technology in the form of auto ducking. So here we have a scene from a film called See You Around, directed by Oren Brimmer. We've got this cool, funny bar scene where we've got dialogue and music and sound effects and ambience. This is completely unmixed at the moment. So I'm going to play this back for you, and ultimately what we want to do is have the music duck down when the dialogue is playing, all right? Which, if you're an audio engineer, you know how to do using a little something called sidechaining. But if you're coming from a video background, not quite so easy, so you probably wind up doing a lot of keyframing and enveloping to sort of drop things down. And for a scene that's 1 minute, okay, that's fine. But if you've got, a longer form scene, this is a lot of manual work. And one of the real themes of this release was giving you back time to be more creative. So let's first just take a quick listen to what this sounds like. This is unmixed at the moment, and you'll hear what's going on inside this session. Take a listen.
Okay.
Great. I'd like an elder.
Actually, we don't have that.
Okay. So the first thing you hear is that obviously the dialogue itself needs to be better balanced. And it's not even so much a matter of balancing, it's a matter of analyzing how everyone speaks when they're recorded and kind of making them have all the same starting point, the same starting level, the same loudness level. So to do that first, we've already denoted these clips as dialogue. The way that Essential Sound works is you select a clip and you tell Essential Sound what it is. Is it dialogue, music, sound effects, or ambience? And when you do that, you're then presented with a series of effects and filters commonly used to process that type of audio. In this case, we're going to use, again, powered by Adobe Sensei, a little auto-matching technology which analyzes the loudness, okay, not the peak level, but the actual loudness of each of your clips, and in a single click, based on a setting that you create inside of your master template view, which in this case conforms to the ITU US broadcast standard, we've matched the loudness of all of our dialogue to minus 23 LUFS. So now they're all at the same approximate listening level. But we still have the issue of the music. So let's go ahead and select our music track here. Tell Essential Sound that this is music. And now we're going to turn on auto ducking. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to analyze the audio, it's going to analyze the music, and it's going to analyze all of the dialogue in here and all the clips of audio. And then, based on what you tell it to duck against, it's going to automatically keyframe volume changes in that music. And you can see here that you have the option to duck against dialogue, music, sound effects, ambience, or clips without an assigned audio type. Now, what's essential about that, and what makes that very powerful for you, is if you're bringing in a sound mix, say from Final Cut via XML, or if you're bringing in a sound mix coming from Avid via AAF into Premiere, or straight OMF from Pro Tools, or you just have stuff that you recorded in Audition that you haven't tagged as anything, this can duck against any source. It doesn't have to be specifically tagged, okay? Now, in this case, we have all the dialogue tagged as dialogue, so this is what we're using. And then you've got 3 simple controls to make this magic work. A sensitivity control, a reduction control, so after it kicks in, how much do you want it to attenuate the music? And then a fade control, how quickly it begins to fade when it brings the music down, when it ducks the music, and then how quickly it restores the music back to its regular volume. Now, these are the default settings, so let's go ahead and take a listen to what we have now. What you'll also notice inside the music track is that we have a non-destructive keyframed volume curve that is dynamic, meaning that if we were to move clips around, as we move things around or change things in the tracks in the multitrack, it actually dynamically reconfigures this fade curve in real time, which is unbelievably super cool, powered by Adobe Sensei. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this now with auto ducking with See You Around.
Hi. I'd like to get a drink, please.
Okay.
Great. I'd like an elderberry liqueur.
Oh, actually, we don't have that.
I've been here before, and I've definitely had it here, so you have it.
Oh, okay. I've only been working here for 5 years, so let me just check on that for you.
Thank you.
I've seen this clip 100 times. I don't know, it still makes me laugh. This, by the way, you can watch this film on Vimeo. It's a short, it's 22 minutes. It's really hilarious. Pretty cool, right? Now, did it attenuate a bit much? Yes, the default here, this doesn't really equate to dB. I'm not quite sure what the 4 means. This isn't out yet, so we're working on what these numbers actually equate to. I've talked to the team about this, right? You need to know what this figure means. But right away, that's the magic of Sensei. It just did it, all right? And similarly with the fade. And actually, I think the fade was quite nice. Perhaps we'd make it a little bit faster, right, so that the music kind of ramps up a bit. It's seasoned to taste, my friends. You can decide what it should be. But as I mentioned, the brilliance of this is that, now you wouldn't do this with dialogue necessarily, but this is just to kind of showcase the real-time aspects of this. If I were to select these clips and move them around, I want you to pay attention to the fade curve here. Watch what happens. It dynamically readjusts, okay? As we move it back into position, it dynamically readjusts. If we were to come over here and readjust the sensitivity, it dynamically readjusts. So this is some really incredibly powerful tech that any video editor who's ever done anything with music and dialogue. Now, by the way, you can have multiple clips of things ducking, not just one. So this has incredible power and incredible potential. If you wanted to do this in the traditional way, you can, of course, go into the mixer and you could choose one of our compressor limiters or your favorite third-party plugin. You could set a sidechain input, which in this case would be stereo, and you could come over to your individual dialogue tracks and set the sidechain input directly. And then, again, you adjust the compressor accordingly, and you can duck whatever you want. Now, you would have to apply that to each of those tracks. And again, with this theme of giving you back time, that's kind of, well, to an audio engineer, that's just part of what they're charging you for. To a video editor, it's wasting time. Okay? What I can tell you is that this auto ducking, powered by Adobe Sensei, powered by the incredible engineers, one of whom is standing in front of me, is awesome. Don't be embarrassed. Come up and say hi. No, I'm just kidding. Please don't come up here. Okay, no, yes. All right, yeah, slow clap, yes. Ah, he's turning red. All right. We're live, by the way, so we're live streaming. Yeah, that's right. Okay. This is so good. As good as auto matching is, and I've said it before, I said it at NAB, auto match, if you're not doing auto match for your music, for your dialogue clips, right? What makes it especially cool here is that we've got a mixture of live, in the room, captured on set sound plus ADR. Again, levels all over the place, 3 different speakers. It makes them all the same apparent loudness in a single click. Okay? It does the same for your music. If you've got rock, jazz, hip hop, all these different music and different scenes, again, the loudness of those clips will all be different. This will make them all the same apparent loudness, so when you start to mix your tracks, something isn't so incredibly loud and the other's too quiet. It's going to make them all kind of the same. Genius stuff powered by Adobe Sensei. Okay, so let's go back to Premiere. We've got 4 more minutes left. And oh my goodness, so many things to choose from. What do I do? All right, let's go back to this. And we'll talk a little bit about essential graphics. And this will kind of probably take us to the end of the hour here. I'm sorry to have to leave you, but the day is almost done. So, motion graphics templates in the Essential Graphics panel. Again, something that we introduced in April of this year. A new way to create animated titles, credits, lower thirds. It was version 1. We couldn't get everything in there initially. You told us what you wanted, and we've implemented it. But we thought of some things that you hadn't even thought of. Because when we're creating amazing dynamic content today, we're also creating it for more than one screen size aspect ratio, right? I just heard that some of the biggest broadcast organizations that are producing content for TV are simultaneously producing all these little social call-outs for Instagram, for Facebook, for Snapchat, which means they've got to be able to take their 16:9 content and repurpose it for square and repurpose it for vertical. So here we have a 16:9 motion graphics template with just a simple title. And today, if I were to take this and make something, a motion graphics template, and then put this into a square format, I'm going to have to actually move and reorient that text. It's not going to be in the same place. It doesn't understand the aspect ratio change. Similarly, if I did the same with vertical, same. We're going to have to move stuff around. That's because they weren't responding to the change. We needed to make them understand. So many of you will be familiar with the concept of responsive design for the web. Well, we've now brought responsive design for position and time to your motion graphics templates, which means that you can design once, enable this responsive feature, and regardless of aspect ratio and frame size, it will reflow and format accordingly, perfectly, every time. So I'm simply going to turn on my action safe, title safe margin so that you can see exactly what I'm doing here and really take note of the position. I'm going to grab the vast horizon and drag it down here. And you'll notice inside the Essential Graphics panel that I am now pinning this text layer responsively to the video frame. And I specifically want to pin it to the bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to right-click here and save this, export this as a motion graphics template. I'm going to save it to one of my shared CC libraries. We'll call this JSON IBC4, last one, and click OK. All right, take note of where it is. So now, when the network says, OK, we need this in square, here's our same video presented in a square format. Let's go to our CC libraries. There's the one we just created, IBC4, last one. Drag it into the timeline, play it back, and by design, our template now is in the exact same position. All right? Just one more example here, because there's the bell. It's time to go. Let's go ahead and make this vertical. So we'll set this to a 9:16 aspect. All right? Click OK. Yes. Drag the template in. go ahead and play it back, and once again, it automatically fits the vertical frame. You also have responsive design time, which allows you to create dynamic animation and preserve the position of keyframed animated text every time using something called responsive design time. So here we could set an intro duration of 1 second and 10 frames and an outro duration of 20 frames, meaning that every time this animation plays, regardless of how we elongate the time of this graphic layer, that animation never changes. If we go into our effects controls, you can see that you now have these little gray highlighted areas, and any keyframes that exist in there will always respect that time. They'll never change. Any keyframed information that you have in the middle will squeeze and stretch accordingly. So if I wanted to take this graphic and have it start at the beginning here, again, if this were in the current version, those keyframes would be lost. They'd be in the wrong place. But now, it happens at the beginning, as expected, 1 second and 10 frames, and then at the end, in 20 frames, it animates out. Or if I shrink this up, again, the beginning of this stays exactly the same, as does the ending, and anything in the middle gets squeezed. Our animation retains the exact same durations in and out. So, responsive design motion graphics templates, new VR additions in the form of the immersive effects, transitions, ambisonic audio as well, real-time preview, data-driven graphics, more expressive controls for face and body, including collision physics and character animator, incredible powered by Adobe Sensei technologies and Adobe Audition with automatic ducking, as well as loudness auto matching, and these are just some of the incredible innovations coming to the next version of Creative Cloud video and audio products. So thank you so much for joining me on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining me live at IBC today. We will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. for day 5. It's been a good one so far. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good night. We'll see you next time. Thank you.